people sleep on gold.
Mhm.
And I'm lucky to have a real estate job and with being within the business, you learn from developers and things like that. But now my new strategy is if I see a duplex, the first thing I do is check the zoning.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will know that the zoning changed right in front of their eyes. They'll think they have a duplex and that's all they have it, but let them think that.
Mhm.
And we just finished closing on one property and it's in Villeray. It's considered a duplex, but it's it's zoned for a 5 unit and it's a garage. So
Ah,
that's and at the price that we got it at the price at a discount for a duplex. But if you got it in your mid 500s for a 5 unit, you stole money.
hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And today I am very pleased and honored to have a Montreal-based real estate investor, and I'd like to welcome Charles Valbonard to the show. Hi, man.
Yeah, so thanks again for the invitation. I'm looking forward to this great conversation.
Yeah, me too. Me too. So before we jump into it and go over your story, I just want to remind everyone, please share this episode with a friend who could benefit from this conversation. The point is to inspire people. And today with Charles, you're going to see that, him and I have started in very simple ways. I want to say we're not special. And if we can do it, you can do it too. So you might be thinking that you've been wanting to start investing in real estate for 2 years now. Well, it's time to do it. So Charles, aka the Wizard Investor, and I hope you can tell us a little bit more about how that name came about. How did you start investing in real estate?
Yeah, so I won't say I fell into it accidentally, but for me, I started into a stock market. So when I was in university, I wanted to be portfolio management, people that take care of TFSAs or RSPs, and that was more my vision
Mm-hmm.
and where I want to go long term. But I realized that there's a common theme that people that have a lot of money end up in real estate some way, somehow. I'm like, okay, well, I didn't expect to have millions of dollars and things like that. I'm like, okay, one property or two to help pay your bills, I'll be good with that. And then afterwards, so my main focus was real estate market, educating people on the real estate market. But where the investor came from is that for me, I didn't come from a background with money. I didn't have all this knowledge. For me, everything that I learned was YouTube University, Google, and having that as a tool. So for me, with an investor, it was more of a concept where I was making magic with what I had.
Yeah.
So to be able to make the investments I made and the opportunities I had, it was really sort of a magic thing. So that's why I call myself with an investor. And for me, that's where it kind of swept off. And then afterwards, I had more of an educational background. Then afterwards, COVID happened. I was already in transition into being going to real estate full time. And then afterwards, met some wonderful people, kind of made that transition. But the onset was really a premise of being able to do magic with what you have in your hands at the moment.
Yeah, and I love how you said that you started with YouTube University. There's so much information out there.
Yeah.
And people who say, I don't know how to learn, I kind of call BS on it because there's so many ways to start. There's plenty of books, there's plenty of podcasts, there's plenty of videos. Now you have to be selective in
Mm-hmm.
who you try to read and who you listen to and what you watch. But there is so much information out there. So you started in Montreal. Now you also said you have a bit of a portfolio in Trois-Rivières.
Yeah.
Can you kind of walk us through what was your first purchase? What was it like? And where are you at with that property right now?
Yeah. So I always knew I wanted to go into real estate at some point. So since 19 years old, I started working at the bank. And the reason why I started working at the bank was, well, the money was good, but it was the credit card department. And that was the first onset where I was like, okay, well, you learn about credit, you learn about credit card, and then you just learn about the concept of leveraging credits.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the initial onset for me to really start my portfolio because it starts with credit score. Yes, you can have money and things like that, but if you're early in your career or you're early in your real estate journey, credit matters as the point because you need to build that relationship with the banks. But that was the best tool to realize, okay, well, this is how you're able to build a portfolio. And at the time, it won't happen again. But my first property, I think I was making around 25,000, but my credit score was really good.
Yeah.
And my investments from things like that, I was able to purchase a duplex that had a legal third unit in the basement. So it was really a triplex, but the city considered considered a duplex. So I was really fortunate for that, and that was off market because
Mhm.
the person or the property where my grandma was living at the time was owned by somebody who wasn't really taking care of the property, and she's the one that told me, okay, well, this might be on the market. So this was approximately 2020 November.
Okay.
So I put an offer, and this is important as well. And sometimes you start seeing patterns and things like that. A lot of people are gonna check the municipal assessment first to see, okay, what's the gauge or the value. And at the time, equity was already built in. I already had a room of approximately $70,000 worth of equity. But
Yeah.
what they don't realize is that whatever you see for the municipal evaluation, the bank's evaluation, most of the time is higher.
Yeah.
So that was where these small tricks you start to see resemblance and things like that. And once you start going through a lot of listings and you start seeing patterns, you start seeing designs, you start seeing, okay, well, I just need a room or a property to look a certain way. And it's easier for me to do renovation. So that was where my strategy is more optimization. I like to have properties that have a certain look, flat roof, things like that,
Mhm.
where it's easier to do cosmetic work and
Yeah.
then just upgrade the rents as I go.
So wait, so
So
the plan with this first one was to buy the duplex and then finish the third unit, I guess.
yeah, because it was already done, but it needed to be updated again. So the whole building needed to get updated, and it was the garage.
Mhm.
So my onset was to buy it, leave it as a triplex, and then that's how I went.
Okay.
And then I didn't really have the concept of potentially converting into a 4 unit until later on once I got into real estate and more into zoning and do zoning verifications and things like that. But the onset was just keeping it as a triplex, and I got a super cheap, quote unquote, for what the market was at. So we closed, I would say, 2 weeks before COVID like really happened.
Okay. Before
So
March 2020.
yeah, before March 2020, I think we went to a notary like February 27th.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you found it because you said in 2020. You found it in 2019 then, in the fall
Well,
of
yeah, we
2019.
closed. It was found in 2019. Time we went to bank verifications,
Okay.
the negotiation and things like that. By the time it was this November, December, we closed on it. And notary was in February. So officially became an owner in February. And I was like, okay, well, this is easy. I was a university student. I was like, I didn't have much expenses. It's nice to have a bit of cash flow. Ta
Easy
ta ta.
peasy.
And then you don't remember this. 2 weeks later, the girl's like, okay, nobody needs to pay rent. Go talk to your landlord.
Yeah.
And he said that at a press conference and it was on TV and Nouvelle. And I didn't even do a month as a real estate investor. I was like, okay, well,
How in the hell is that gonna work?
yeah, because you had these bills, and at the time I still worked at the bank, and it was weird because we were considered essential workers. So people were called doctors, architects, lawyers, and they were stopping their payments.
Yeah.
And they were asking, "Oh, can I defer my mortgage payments?" And I was like, and we had to
No.
transfer people and get contact with upper management. And that's what hit me. I was like, well, if they're worried about debt payments, what does that mean for me, a university student that has one property and things like that? So that's kind of when my brain kind of shifted to say, okay, well, let me just weather that storm, but make sure I leverage myself where everything is automated one, but everything paid itself off first.
Yeah.
And what I realized with properties in Montreal is that it's an appreciation play and not a cash flow play. So there's no cash flow in Montreal. So that's what kind of switched my vision because I knew I couldn't really kick out people when people weren't looking to move and things like that. So I knew I had to basically sacrifice a year of revenue, keep everybody steady, just pay off the mortgage,
Yeah.
and then reassess 2021, 2022. But when COVID got pushed, it kind of changed the plans. But it kind of allowed me to have more a real estate investor and less of a consumer based lackadaisical approach.
Exactly.
So
I
that's
love.
what,
I love how you said that you switch your mindset from consumer to investor because
yeah,
that's exactly what it is. And
yeah,
people who like started flipping out at the beginning and stuff. Okay, but look, you're in this for the long run. That duplex is still going to be here 20 years from now,
yeah,
even if some tenants don't pay for 2 months. Big deal.
yeah, yeah. So when you think of it like that, it's like, oh, does it really matter on a 25-year horizon? No, it
No,
doesn't.
no, it's insignificant.
Yeah. So then afterwards, I was like, okay, well, I switched my mindset. We saw the low interest rates happening.
Mhm.
But what became evident to me is that there were opportunities before in Montreal, and you were able to find good properties and things like that. But with the low interest rates, like I said, a lot of people switch from consumer to investors at the same time. So everybody was looking at the same properties, overbidding. You had overseas money coming in, so it was a whole storm of different factors at the same time. So that's why I knew I was like, okay, well, I like the Greater Montreal area, but is there any other opportunities out there that are of interest? And then
Mhm.
at the time, there weren't as many podcasts like yourselves, like other people within the Montreal community or Quebec, really speaking about real estate investing earlier on. So I kind of had videos of the states, and you have people talking about investing in different states and things like that. So that kind of like opened my mindset to say, okay, well, there's opportunity in Three Rivers and things like that. And I have many friends who work in logistics, and that's something I would like to share. People, the industries that move the needle: economic development, logistics, universities, and hospitals.
Mhm.
And those are the kind of trends that you kind of look at to see if there's any developments within those things. You know, there's a population boom that's going to come afterwards. So I had my brother works in logistics, and he was telling me, okay, well, we have to go to a training in True Rivers, and I was telling him what's in True Rivers. He's like, they're opening the ports, and we saw 2 years later that was happening and things like that. So that's why I kind of opened my mind to say, okay, well, the whole True Rivers area is an opportunity because, and we see it now that pushing more people or to get away from Montreal or new immigrants to come away from Montreal, and there's a push to push them towards Drummondville, Chicoutimi,
Mhm.
and that's where we saw opportunities. And during COVID, there was duplexes, properties, 120, 95,000, 85,000, 150. So that's where you see these opportunities. Like if you could just buy two, three, four, and like you said, Axel, on a high yield horizon, that investment looks good in 5 years, in 10 years, and then afterwards you could just consolidate or sell and things like that. So that's kind of where we kind of got into that mold where let's just not stay within Montreal. So we
Yeah.
had purchases in La Turque and all these places where rents are $600, $500, but people don't need marbles on in the shower. You know,
Yeah.
it's very, very low maintenance.
Mhm.
People pay, and that's why I kind of switched my mindset to say, okay, well, is it more complicated logistically, and you have to have property management and things like that? Yes, but your initial investment and your carrying cost is very minute compared to Montreal.
Yeah, it's
So
still worth
that's
it.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, for sure. Is the rent lower? 100%, but I only need to spend 25,000 on the kitchen that you know might only last 4 years.
Yeah.
It's like
Mm.
for them it's white paint or white kitchen, and then for them that's a good life.
That's good enough.
So
So then you bought a property in Trois-Rivières.
yeah, exactly. So we bought a puppy in Three Rivers, and it was a really duplex, and that's where relationships matter because at the same time too, once you're exposed to other people, you're like, okay, well, you gotta use up your 5%, but there's also other opportunities for you to do this if you get a co-signer and things like that. So that's why I kind of realized in my journey where when you start young, you're like, oh, I can figure it out. And like you said, Axel, YouTube University is a good help, but just having community of investors is important. So that's why we started going more to events, and like, you and JP started having the English events I was able to attend to and things like that. And start speaking to people, and people start to provide you more information. And during that time of still COVID, so opportunities for people to sell were very, very limited because there was a short window to get the financing and things like that.
Mhm.
So we closed that March 2021. And then afterwards, I was on the page where at the time I was 25. I was like, if I could buy one property every single year or average it
Yeah.
out, where it's one property per year, I think you build yourself a nice portfolio. And then that was just the goal. So then afterwards,
And wait, hold on.
yeah,
If you, I love that you said that because originally that's what I wanted to do, to buy one property a year for 10 years.
yeah,
And it really does have the compounding effect. And for people listening, they might be thinking, this is crazy. I could never afford this. It's not about whether you can afford it. It's about finding people to do it with. Because at
hmm
some point, you buy one, you buy two, then you tap out. Okay. Then it's finding people that are going to come in with you. Because think about it. In your case, you were 24, 25 at the time.
yeah,
That means that by the age 35, you own 10 properties. The first one, you've already capitalized 10 years on it. You're 35, you're set for life.
yeah, yeah. And you see, that's where, like you said, Axel, that's where it's important because I bought my property, my first one in 2020. At the time, we'll say, call it 3 years and a half later, that property doubled in, we'll call it evaluation without any renovation. I only renovated one unit and then that's that.
Yeah.
So that's where it's like, maybe in 2 years from now, it might be worth $900,000. But when
Mhm.
you refinance that and then you continue, like you said, that compounding effect, and that's where I kind of see the correlation between real estate and the stock market as identical. It's just really putting yourself as in. And like you mentioned before, that's where creative financing comes because once you get two properties, they kind of like tapped out, or the banks that say
Yeah.
you're high risk.
Yeah.
But that's where I'm at, where it's like, okay, now partnerships are becoming a thing. Now you have to have ventures and things like that, or even development if you're able to make it work financially. So that's where it kind of gets fun and more creative. And I don't need, and I hope people understand this, you don't need 100% for every deal.
No.
If you have a small percentage, it adds up. And I think that's where I had to do a reflection to say, okay, well, my ego doesn't need 100%.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if I'm able just to have a percentage of a property and then it adds up, you made your money.
Mhm.
But people like, you don't need to have or have every role within your real estate company. And that's
Yeah.
something that I've come to realize of late. That's, something you want to
Yeah,
do
but late,
everything.
but what? You're 27 now, man. Come
Yeah.
on, don't give me this. And the thing is, because yeah, would you rather have 100% of nothing or 50% of something,
Yeah.
or would you rather have 10% of something huge,
Yeah. There you go.
or 100% of nothing? And so
Yeah.
it always depends, but it depends where people are at in their spiral of development of real estate
Exactly.
investing and of life and so on, and that might be an appropriate strategy for you at the age of 25, but for someone who's 55 years old, they don't see it this way because they
Yeah.
don't have the same time horizon, but they
Mm-hmm.
have maybe more capital and less time, so it
Yeah.
always depends on where they're at.
Exactly. And then afterwards, during that time, I finished university. I started working as a real estate analyst, and then I started having more of a commercial approach to things. So that's where zoning became a thing that I looked into. And
Yeah.
then afterwards, then you start getting to the fun stuff where it's like you kind of carry that development hat, and we had conversations of looking more holistically speaking. Okay, what's coming down the pipeline? Is that economic development you could contact? And that's where I think people, especially starting out, that's where you kind of have fun.
Mhm.
You see these sexy properties in Montreal and things like that, but think about the next neighborhood in Montreal that's gonna take fire. Think about other regions outside of Montreal that's gonna have economic development and things like that.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, go
So
ahead.
I just want to touch on because I just find you had such a natural progression of like, well, I bought a duplex. I know I could add a third unit. And then, later on, I kind of looked into the zoning and stuff. That's just a natural progression because it's rare that people start with zero property and they're expert in zoning. If so, there's
Mm-hmm.
someone like that out there, like, wow, congrats to
Yeah,
you. But it's just that once you've done your first deal, then you realize, oh my God, I could take the property I already have and turn it into a 3 or a 4 unit.
yeah,
Like, think that's how you create
there
value.
you go.
And you just started with a duplex, and all of a sudden you can turn it into a 4 unit. And I
Yeah,
mean, it's more than compounding at this point. It's literally like creating value out of thin air.
yeah. And you see, and this is what I'm gonna tell people because people sleep on gold.
Mhm.
And I'm lucky to have a real estate job and with being within the business, and you learn from developers and things like that. But now my new strategy is if I see a duplex, first thing I do is check the zoning.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will know that the zoning changed right in front of their eyes. They'll think they have a duplex and that's all they have it, but let them think that.
Mhm.
And we just finished closing on one property and it's in Villeray. It's considered a duplex, but it's, it's zoned for a 5 unit and it's a garage. So
Ah.
that's, and at the price that we got it at the price at a discount for a duplex. But if you got it in your mid 500s for a 5 unit, you stole money.
You got it at a discount for a duplex. Imagine how
Yeah.
much of a discount you got for a 5
There
unit.
you go. There
That's
you go.
like, whoa,
you,
boom. The,
you
ma-
know,
the
so
magic happens.
like you said, Axel, you gotta create value. But I think for real estate investors, especially in a type market like Montreal, that's where you kind of have to be creative.
Mhm.
Yes, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of divisions, yes, 100%. But I'd rather do that than spend $900,000 for properties that you still have to put money into it, renovating and things like that. So it balances itself out. And I think, like you said, there's a steeper curve for the appreciation to kick in. So that's my onset for now. and I kind of see my value going forward like that. Partnerships, optimizing properties, looking at the zoning and things like that. Have an interest in commercial real estate. So I'm kind of doing that natural progression. And like we spoke about your development, there's opportunities for land and then just acquiring and do things like that. So, and when I'm going through that progression, but for people listening, I think just having the concept to say, okay, I don't know anything. And somebody told me this, our friend Terry Collect, he's like, know your why and know your special power, and
Yeah.
that's something that really stuck with me. Not everybody's able to do the same thing, but if you're able to bring one thing, it could be cash, could be leads, could be connections, could be zoning verification. Everybody has something to add to a deal, but you need to make that stand out so that people see that you're integral to the deal or to the process. And if you're able to do that any way you can to get involved in your first one, I think that's something that could be great. Because for me, for a very long time, I was by myself and I thought I could have been good. But in the last year and a half, the growth I've seen in myself and in my investment in the opportunity, the people I know, is surpasses anything I did the last five
Yeah,
years.
because then people look at you, they're like, wow,
Yeah.
look, if Charles can do it, he's got the courage and the knowledge. I want to tag along with him. Hey
Yeah.
man, I got 50K. What could we do?
Yeah.
What's the deal? And then it attracts people, it attracts talent, it attracts capital, it attracts deal flow. I mean, then it's a I don't want to say it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It still depends on your hard work, but
Yeah.
it gets easier from there.
Yeah,
So
and it's like that's what it's at. Because 5 years ago, 2 years ago, I was watching a podcast 2 years ago. Wouldn't think I would be on it. So you never know how things in life could just go, and that's where, like you said, you just have to find yourself in an ecosystem where it's just self fulfilling or self feeding, and then after the opportunity just come around. So, like you said, really kind of like writing a mission statement for yourself, like, oh, you might be 55, but is your goal to retire in 5 years, or your goal to retire in 2 years? And that kind of gauges your level of aggression towards the market or opportunity that could be available to you.
mhm.
So that's why it's really understanding that from the onset. And I think afterwards, working backwards, because that's what I did. I said, okay, well, by age 50, by age 45, I kind of want to have X amount. And then you break down how much is that portfolio. If you want to break it down, how many properties is that equal to? And kind of reverse engineer that process. And that's what kind of gave me, like you said, the equation of one property for 10 years. And then you go from that onset.
Yeah.
So we're on track. We're at 3 properties. And then hopefully there's more properties to be acquired. But kind of
Yes.
average itself out to what I said before.
So that's what I was going to say now in the couple minutes that we have left. Where are you at now? What are you looking for the next like 3 years?
Next 3 years, I think for me, and my job is in industrial real estate investors. I'm analyst. That's my 9 to 5. And
Okay.
for me, that's kind of where I see opportunities being. Price per square foot is cheaper, renovation is cheaper. So I think I kind of want to do one development like you did, Axel, where you could just do a triplex or a 6 unit or a 12 unit and just do that and say I did it and understand that process.
Mhm.
But I think there's a lot of opportunities for industrial investments. I think even you don't have to do 100,000 square foot development, but I think there's a very big demand for warehouses between
Yeah.
2 to 5,000, 10,000 square feet. And
Huge,
I think that's
huge demand.
where there'll be a conversation, and that's where people look up to the conversation in Quebec. All this agricultural land is it going to be converted industrial? They're going to be converted residential. And people need to pay attention to that because I think that's what it's going to open the floodgate. And
Yeah.
thank you for Axel for that event. Kind of just
Yeah.
reconfirms what we knew, but
Yeah, and it's funny because as you said that, it got me thinking to 2 points. So you attended the event that we did back in September on the future of industrial real estate, and both Mike and Sam from Rosefellow are a huge inspiration to me, both from a on a personal level and on a real estate level. And so I'll put that on one side, and on the other side, yesterday I was having a conversation with a contractor, and he's like, in the next little while, I'm gonna have less availability because the building that I used to rent and use as my depot got sold. So
mm,
now I'm looking for another, like, let's say 2 to 4,000 square feet. I need to store material. I need to have my office and this and that. And with this guy, already 2 years ago, we had looked at a piece of land on Saint Jacques,
okay, wow.
to maybe buy, to develop, and to do like about 4 to 5 industrial condos.
Mm-hmm.
for trades, for I was gonna say plumbers and electrician
Yeah.
who wants to store and stuff. And
Yeah.
demand for this is
Yeah.
crazy right
Yeah.
now. And I feel like every single week I talk to people who are exactly in that category and say, I'd be looking for 3,000 square feet. I
There
need to
you go.
store material and stuff.
There
And
you
so,
go.
you're saying it too, and you're seeing it at a professional level. You
Yeah.
working for a financial institution where that's what you do day in, day out, and you
Yeah.
see the numbers.
Yeah. We need to talk. We need to talk because I'll
Yeah,
say
let's
this.
let's talk
We,
offline after that.
yeah.
And
I'll
for
say this.
everyone listening, we'll maybe next week I'll let you know what happened to this
Yeah. I'll
conversation.
just say this, Axel, like you said, and I think people need to pay attention to it. And you'll see the trend in New York is happening in Montreal. People are building condos, but people don't have storage. And I'll leave it at that. People could do what they want with that information,
Yep,
but there's opportunities for boxes, and people could do what they want.
100%.
So that's where it's at.
100%.
You know.
And okay, wow. We're finishing I've been talking on this podcast forever for our project in Laval that's been delayed, but it's really being finished, and we're going to market, and we're selling it. And
Wow. Okay.
in the basement, we have the space to do about 6 storage units. And and in total transparency, I'm not going to do them myself. I want to sell the project, but I want to
Mm-hmm.
leave this as juice for the
Yeah.
next owner to come in to be like,
For revenue.
bro,
Yeah.
that's a huge revenue
Yeah.
opportunity. The entire basement is untapped. There's still space
Yeah.
in the back to add maybe 2 sheds.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the analogy you made of like, hey, in New York, they have a small condo and they rent storage. Like, what does that say about the evolution of living habits and
Yeah.
consumer habits and the opportunity it creates for people for people like you and me?
Yeah. Because I think that's where it is, and I'll leave it at that. Because for me, not my property, like you said, the shed. That's a revenue stream that I've been looking at for a very long time, and that's where, yes, do I analyze my property based on a property basis? Yes, but for me is where I look at the backyard. How much space do I have to add a shed? Is there a space in the basement where I could just add locker rooms? And those are the types of creative thinking you need to get to that point, because a property in Montreal, you need probably 3 properties now to pay your mortgage, and then the fourth one is gravy. So it's kind of knowing these things
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, well, you might have tight margins, but where can you create value within using your property lines? And that's where storage kind of comes into play. So I think it's a great for people to just start thinking about that, because it's coming. And like you said, a good thing, consumer habits. I think understanding, and that's where the stock market kind of taught me these things. Understanding why Dollarama is putting grocery stores, understanding why Amazon's putting more distribution centers, understanding why IGA is doing deliveries. These things provide services that you're able to offer your tenants. And that's why you're able to charge a premium for it. So it's kind of having that condo mentality for an apartment. And
Yeah.
that if people are able to understand that concept, I think there's great opportunities for them in Montreal or in Quebec in general.
Yeah. It's funny because as you said that, you actually give me a good idea that I need to act on today. I'm not going to share it now, but yes, 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 yes. Thank
Perfect,
you.
perfect. We'll talk soon because we need to
Yeah.
talk. We'll talk.
And the podcast, it's been 3 years. Like this fall is 3 years.
Wow, congrats.
I'm at 157 or 58 episodes, and these very conversations is what I am so grateful for, because Charles, we've seen each other at a couple of events, we chat, we have a good time every time, but like helping out each other by just we just had a 30-minute conversation,
Yeah.
but look at what comes out of it.
Yeah, there you go.
And that's what makes me very grateful. And I want to share it with you and share it with everybody who's listening, because I've put a lot of time and energy into it. And so thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting, because it actually, I hope I build value for all of you, but it certainly has built a lot of value for me, because I've been forced to have meaningful conversations with people every week.
Yeah, Axel, I greatly appreciate it. Especially we spoke, advice you gave me, and sometimes is that one tidbit that just changes your perspective. And I think you gave me a lot of gems throughout the podcast, directly, indirectly. So for me, I'm grateful for that, and that's something I hold dearly. So thank you, Axel, and I hope we continue on that trend and more
Yeah, man.
opportunities to come as well.
I'm here for the long run.
There you
I'll
go.
still be here next year, and I'll still be here the year after. So
There you go.
Mr. The Wizard, if people want to find out more about you, get in touch. What's the best way to do so?
Yeah, so I'm mostly available on Instagram as thewizard.investor. If not, it's my first name, last name on LinkedIn. I could be reached out and then be coffee, anything, advice, I'm here for it, and look forward to hearing you guys. And thank you, Axel, as well.
Hey, pleasure. Thank you very much for your participation and sharing your story, Charles. The goal is just to inspire others and give them the confidence that if you can do it, if I can do it, they can do it. So on this wonderful note, thank you everyone for listening. Keep researching your market, make some offers, and I'll talk to you next week. Thank you.